Welcome to our part 4 revision series of biology, and at this juncture we shall talk about genes and DNA. Genes and DNA. Remember that genes are the tiny units of inheritance. The tiny units of inheritance simply means these are the ones which are going to carry hereditary materials. So I want you to understand today like this: any characteristic that you possess, that is with regard to the height, the skin complexion, and all the shape of the nose, all those, the characteristics which you possess, you inherited them from your parents. And of such characteristic, your father contributed some, your mother contributed some. So those are and they are normally colored by tiny units of inheritance, which we call them genes. Why do you bring the aspect of DNA? Because it's the DNA which carries the genes. We cannot talk about genes without mentioning DNA. And again, we cannot mention about DNA without mentioning genes, because all of them, they form the basis and the foundation of genetics. So when you go to the next step, I want you to understand this. Genes, we talked about this. Genes exist in pairs. And such pairs, we call them alleles. So what does it mean? A characteristic, let's say for a characteristic like height. This one is a characteristic. Another is like weight. Another one is, for example, skin complexion. All these are traits which we inherit most of the time. I want to understand this, that certain characteristics are also influenced by the environment. But much case is about the genotype of the organism. I want us to focus on this trait, height. So this height, you will find that you will inherit this one from your parents. And how are they carried out? They are carried by the genes. And they're saying these genes, they exist in pairs. And such pairs of genes, we call them alleles. So the concept of allele can be understood by this example. Let's say I have a plant, and this plant has red flowers. So this means this plant, it has a gene for flower color. It has a gene for flower color. And this gene for flower color, it means that this red flower, it has two alleles for the red color flower. So we have the red allele, the red allele. Remember, we're talking about, in genetics simply means the study of variation and inheritance. So the red allele and the red allele, one allele came from the male part, another one came from the female part. So if I have, let's say, a gene for, gene of flower color, which in this case it is red, this means we have two alleles. One which is red, another one which is red, and both of them were inherited. One from the father, another one from the mother. Another example, we can have another quick example. We can have a plant whose flower is pink. So this pink it is a color. And this color is a trait. That means this plant inherited this pink color. And the genes responsible for this pink color is from the alleles. One of the alleles will be white and another one will be red. So white plus red will come and form what we call a pink. In other words, this flower inherited either white allele from the father, then red allele from the mother. White allele from the father and then red allele from the mother. Remember, this one, alleles are carried by homologous chromosomes. This one is an homologous chromosome. Remember in our previous topic, we talked about that the genes are found on the locus. So if I was to do like this, this one is a chromatid. Also this one is a chromatid. So this one, I want to understand this one is a homologous chromosome. And of this pair, one came from the male, another one came from the female. So in other words, if it is a trait for color, they normally occupy the same locus in different chromosomes. So here we can have on this locus, we can have gene for color. And in this case, it is flower. So, what does it mean? The female will bring in a gene responsible for the flower color. The male will bring in a gene responsible for the flower color. But the one which is going to be expressed depends on the relationship of these two alleles. That's why we'll find us talking about dominant recessive. If, let's say, we have the flower, let's say for example, this is a flower, which we were saying there it was red. Of course, this color is inherited. Then, this one is F1 generation. Then the parents. We were selfing a plant with red flower and a plant with white flower. Then we realize that the flower is red. What does it mean? It means this F1 generation, which is a plant, it inherited, hope you're going with me, student. This means this red flower, it inherited genes for flower color. From the male, we had red. From the female, we had white. But you're saying that the phenotype of this flower is red. Why is it red? Simply means that the red allele was dominant over the white allele. The red allele was dominant over white allele. So in other words, what do we mean? That a single characteristic is determined by a pair of genes, which you call it allele. Let's say, for example, another example now, when we talk about human beings. Let me use now the simplest example to make you understand about this concept. Let's say your mom, let me use this simple example. Your mom is tall. Your father is taller. So all of them in their chromosomes, they will carry gene for height. They will carry gene for height. So we have specifically gene which is for height, and they will occupy same locus on the chromosome. This is our chromosome. So we have locus here, we have the locus here. So we have gene for height. Gene for height. We have said your mom is tall, we shall use small h to denote that. Then say your father is taller, we shall use capital H to denote that. So that means the offspring will be what? Taller. The offspring is going to become taller. Because on this gene for height, it has two alleles. Gene for height, it has two alleles. One of the allele came from the father, came from the mother, and another allele came from the father. Another illustration. On this same chromosome, we have gene for skin complexion. Gene for skin complexion. We shall use letter S. Let's say your dad was dark, small s. Then your mom is light skin. We'll find out that the complexion of the offspring will be what? We can have two ways. It's either, but if we're not talking about now incomplete, we're talking about complete dominance, we shall find that this S will suppress this one. So we're going to have a child who is light skin. A child who is light skin. So allele from the mother came, allele from the father came, but then this one was more dominant compared to this one, so it had to suppress this one. So we're going to have light skin. So that means I want to tell you, just by concluding this lesson, is that any single characteristic that you have is carried by a pair of genes, and such pair of genes are alleles. Such pair of genes are alleles. So the next time you're going to see how these alleles is going to form a basis foundation for our next lessons as we talked about them.